All right, so picture this. You're coming in for a landing, looking out the window, you see the people down there, they look so tiny, and then suddenly the plane, it like jerks back up into the air. And the captain comes on, trying to sound calm, but you can tell something's up. And he's like, folks, just a slight change of plans. We're going to be making a bit of a go around.
Oh, boy.
And that's when you see it, like smoke coming from the engine.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I immediately start thinking about, those massive fire trucks they have at airports?
Right.
I always wonder if they're going to come racing out with those giant hoses and foam and everything.
It's interesting you say that because while those fire trucks are definitely impressive, the main thing those airport firefighters are worried about, it's actually not putting out the fire first. Their top priority is saving lives, which means sometimes they even have to focus on, getting everyone off the plane safely before they can even think about fighting the fire.
Wow. See, that's kind of the opposite of what I would have thought.
Yeah.
I mean, you see a giant burning plane, you'd think, put the fire out. But it makes sense that saving lives comes first.
Yeah. It's all about this idea of the what they call the golden time.
Okay.
Those first few minutes after, some kind of incident happens, they're absolutely crucial.
Yeah.
And this handbook, it actually quotes the International Civil Aviation Organization, ICAO, and they say that the main goal of an airport rescue and firefighting service, RFFS, they call it, is to save lives. That's it.
Wow.
Putting out the fire is important, of course, but it comes after making sure everyone is out of harm's way.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense when you put it like that. Still, it's a pretty intense thing to think about. Every second counts in those situations. So how do those firefighters even prepare for something like that? It's got to be, like, next level training.
Oh, absolutely. We're not talking superhero school or anything,
Okay.
but they go through rigorous physical and medical assessments. Like, we're talking Olympic athlete level here.
Wow.
And the handbook, it actually lists a whole bunch of medical conditions that could be a problem for a firefighter, so they've really got to be in top shape to handle the intensity of the job.
So yeah, definitely no couch potatoes allowed if you want to be an airport firefighter.
Right.
But what about the training itself? How do they even start preparing for something as crazy and unpredictable as a plane crash?
Well, they do these super detailed simulations called task and resource analysis, TRA for short. Basically, you've got all these experts sitting around a table, and they map out every possible thing that could go wrong,
Oh, wow.
right down to how many firefighters are needed for each scenario.
So it's like a giant what if game, but with, real lives on the line.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the handbook actually talks about this really interesting TRA simulation they did. Involved an A330 aircraft.
Okay.
And what they found was that even little things, like whether they had enough crew commanders on hand, could make a huge difference.
Oh, wow.
Turns out they didn't have enough during that simulation, which meant those breathing apparatus teams, the BA teams,
Right.
they were delayed getting into the aircraft.
Yeah.
And if that had been a real situation, that delay, it could have been really bad.
Yeah. That's a scary thought. So it really highlights just how important it is to have those leaders in place.
Absolutely. But it's not just about the people,
Mhm.
It's also about having the right gear.
Yeah.
We're talking high-tech vehicles designed to go fast, go off-road, because you never know where on the airfield something's going to happen and carry a whole lot of, well, fire-stopping stuff.
So not your average fire truck then?
Nope.
Are we talking about those monster trucks of fire engines you see out on the airfield?
Exactly. The handbook talks about a bunch of different types, but one they mention is the 6x6 configuration.
It's bison.
It's like the SUV of fire trucks.
Yeah.
It can handle just about anything.
Wow.
And get this, some of them even have those proximity suits.
Proximity suits. Those sound intense. Are those the ones that let firefighters walk right into the fire?
Yeah, they're designed to withstand some serious heat.
Wow.
But the handbook does say that even with those suits, there are limits to what they can handle.
Right.
It's a good reminder that these firefighters, even with all this high-tech gear, they're still putting themselves in incredibly dangerous situations to keep us safe.
Okay, so we've got athlete level fitness, strategic thinking, and these vehicles straight out of sci-fi movie.
Right.
But I have a feeling there's even more to airport firefighting than meets the eye, right?
Oh, you have no idea. There's so much more to it than just fires.
It's kind of mind-blowing when you think about all the things they have to be ready for. So what else is there besides, actual fires?
Well, remember how we were talking about those support vehicles earlier?
Yeah.
They're super important in all kinds of situations.
Okay, so, What kind of support vehicles are we talking about? What makes them so special?
One that really stands out in this handbook is the Mass Casualty Incident Trailer. They call it an MCI trailer for short.
MCI, okay.
And since, saving lives is the top priority, they have to be prepared if something really big happens.
So it's kind of like a mobile hospital all set up to treat a lot of people right there on the airfield.
Exactly. And it's not just like they threw some random bandages and stuff in there. The handbook, it actually talks about how they figure out what medical equipment needs to be on that trailer based on what kind of planes are using the airport.
Wow, that's incredible. They really have thought of everything, huh?
Yep.
Makes you realize how complex all of this really is. But you were saying it's not just fires they have to worry about, right? What other kinds of things do they have to deal with?
Think of it this way. The airport is like its own city, right?
Yeah.
Anything that could happen in a city could happen there. We're talking medical emergencies, spills and leaks of hazardous materials like fuel or chemicals, that sort of thing. Oh, and this one might surprise you, wildlife control.
Yeah, they have to deal with animals too.
You'd be surprised.
I never would have thought of that. I thought that was like a whole different department.
It's all connected. See,
Yeah.
those birds might look harmless, but they can be a real danger to planes, especially when they're taking off or landing.
Okay, that makes sense, I guess. So they're not just firefighters then. They're like first responders, hazmat experts, and part-time zookeepers all rolled into one.
Pretty much.
Mm.
And figuring out their response area, it's not as simple as you might think. It's not just a matter of drawing a line on a map. The handbook talks about how the boundaries of the airport and where other emergency services are all factor into who's responsible for what.
Wow. So next time I'm at the airport and I see those big fire trucks out on the tarmac, I'm going to be thinking about all the different things they might have to do, not just putting out fires.
Exactly. And it's not just about those big dramatic events either. Even something as simple as communication, it's super important for them to do their job right.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Clear communication has got to be essential in those high pressure situations.
Absolutely. And it's not just about firefighters talking to each other. They need to be in constant contact with, like, air traffic control, other emergency services, even the pilots and crew on the plane that's involved.
Wow, so it's like this giant, complicated dance they're doing with everybody playing their part. How do they even manage all that communication when things get crazy?
Well, the handbook explains how they use a whole bunch of different communication systems. They have their own radio frequencies, special alert systems, and even a direct line to the control tower. They call it the hotline.
A hotline.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah.
I'm guessing they're not using it to order pizza.
No, haha. That hotline is only for emergencies when every second counts.
Oh, wow.
It gives them a direct way to talk to each other no matter what's going on.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. But it sounds like it's more than just radios and hotlines, right? I think the handbook also mentions something about light gun signals. What's that all about?
Oh yeah, the light gun. It sounds kind of old school, but it's still really useful out on the airfield, like when radio communication isn't working right or it's just too noisy.
So it's like what, semaphore flags but with lights?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Different colored lights send different messages. It's like visual Morse code for the airport.
Hmm.
The handbook stresses that these firefighters, they need to know all these different ways to communicate. And they're
Wow.
always training to make sure they're up to date on the procedures.
It's kind of wild how much specialized knowledge goes into a job that honestly most people never even think about. But I'm guessing communication is just one piece of the puzzle, right? The handbook also talked about how important it is to have like really clear procedures in place.
Oh yeah, absolutely. They have these things called standard operating procedures, SOPs for short. They're like the rule book for everything.
Okay, so the SOPs, those are basically the playbook for any situation they might encounter.
Yep. Everything from routine maintenance to responding to a major emergency, it's all laid out in the SOPs. The handbook, it really emphasizes that those SOPs have to be super thorough, cover every possible scenario.
But how do they know if their procedures actually work? I mean, I would think they would have to like actually practice, right? To make sure everyone's ready for a real emergency.
Exactly. They do a ton of training exercises.
Oh, wow.
The handbook talks about all kinds, from tabletop exercises, that's where they basically talk through a scenario, to full-blown live drills, where they basically stage a disaster to see how everyone reacts.
So they're out there like setting up fake disasters to see how their teams handle it. That's intense.
It is intense, and it's not like
Yeah.
they just wing it either. The handbook actually has a whole checklist for planning these drills. Everything from like coming up with a scenario
Yeah.
to making sure the people who are observing, they know what to look for.
Okay, so let's break down that checklist a little bit. What are some of the things they focus on when they're planning one of these airport firefighting exercises?
Well, The most important thing is to make it realistic.
Right.
It needs to be challenging enough to really test their abilities,
Yeah.
but it also needs to be something that could actually happen.
So no alien invasions or anything?
Huh, probably not. But they do consider a whole range of potential problems from like engine fires and runaway overruns to hazmat spills and even plane evacuations.
Hmm.
They have to be ready for anything.
That's a pretty impressive list. Okay, so once they've decided on the scenario, what's next?
Next, they figure out who needs to be involved. It could be firefighters, air traffic control, airport staff, even people from outside agencies like the local fire department or paramedics.
So it's a real team effort. They want to involve everyone who would be there in a real emergency.
Exactly. Then they create a really specific timeline of how the whole thing will play out from the moment the alarm goes off to the final debriefing at the end.
So it's like they're choreographing a big, complicated dance, but instead of music and costumes, they're using fire trucks and emergency procedures.
That's a great way to put it. And the handbook also mentions how important it is for them to have observers who carefully watch everything that happens and take notes on what goes well and what could be improved.
So they're constantly learning and getting better based on these practice drills.
Absolutely. And that training, it covers a whole lot of stuff. We're talking about learning the ins and outs of different types of airplanes, how to handle hazardous materials safely, the whole 9 yards.
Okay, aircraft familiarization, what's that all about?
Well, you can't put out a fire on a plane if you don't know your way around it,
Oh,
right?
dear.
They have to be really familiar with all the different types of aircraft that use the airport, how they're laid out, even what materials they're made of.
So it's not just about spraying water on flames. They really have to understand the specific challenges and dangers of each plane.
Exactly. In fact, the handbook even suggests that airports should work with airlines to give firefighters a chance to actually train inside real airplanes.
Oh, really?
It's all about making the training as realistic as possible.
That's amazing. It sounds like the airlines are really invested in keeping the passengers safe, even in those worst-case scenarios.
Absolutely. And it goes beyond just the layout, too. The handbook even suggests that firefighters should be trained on the specific procedures for shutting down different systems on each type of plane.
Oh, wow.
It's all about minimizing damage and keeping everyone safe.
That is incredible. They really have thought of everything, haven't they? You also mentioned something earlier about hazardous materials training. What does that involve?
Well, airports deal with a lot of potentially dangerous stuff, from jet fuel to those super strong cleaning chemicals.
Yeah, that's true. I never really thought about it that way.
Yeah, these firefighters have to be prepared to handle spills, leaks, even fires involving these materials.
So it's not just about putting out the fire, they also need to know how to handle whatever caused it in the first place.
Exactly. The handbook's really clear on this point. They need the right training and the right equipment to deal with these situations safely. Like, they need to know how to identify what the material is, how to contain it, how to decontaminate the area.
So on top of everything else, they're AZMAT specialists too.
Pretty much. And the handbook even gives guidance on what kind of protective gear they need depending on what they're dealing with.
This is incredible. It's like these airport firefighters are prepared for anything and everything.
They really are. And we're still just scratching the surface here. The handbook talks about how some airports require even more specialized training, like water rescue for airports that are near lakes or oceans, and how to handle emergencies in really bad weather when visibility is low.
Water rescue. That sounds more like something for the Coast Guard.
Right. But you'd be surprised how many airports are located near water. They need to be prepared in case something happens during takeoff or landing and a plane ends up in the water.
Right, of course. Okay, so they're constantly learning new skills and adding to their expertise to be ready for any challenge, no matter how unexpected it might be. But with all this training and specialized equipment, I mean, it must cost a fortune to keep an airport fire department up and running.
You're telling me. The handbook even dedicates a whole section to financial management.
Okay, let's talk money then. What are some of the things they have to think about when it comes to paying for all of this?
Well, for starters, they need a really detailed budget, right?
Right.
And it has to cover all their expenses. Salaries, training costs, vehicle maintenance, buying new equipment, you name it.
So it's a lot more than just buying those big fancy fire trucks.
Right.
They've got to keep those trucks running, make sure everyone's trained, and make sure all the equipment is in good shape.
Exactly. And the handbook stresses that they have to think long term.
Hmm.
They need a plan for replacing those vehicles and equipment as they get older, and that can get really expensive.
So it's a balancing act, making sure they have the resources they need right now, but also planning for the future.
Absolutely. And of course, they have to be prepared for those unexpected costs.
Mm-hmm.
Like if something breaks or gets damaged in an accident,
Right, yeah.
things happen.
So they're like financial wizards, too, juggling all these different costs and trying to make sure they can still do their jobs effectively.
Something like that.
Yeah,
It's not just about managing the money they have, but also about making sure they're spending it wisely.
right. Making sure they get a good deal.
Exactly. So the handbook, it talks about how important it is to have really clear specifications
Yeah.
when they're buying new equipment or supplies.
Oh.
They don't just go for the cheapest option. They take the time to figure out what they really need, and then they find the best value.
So they're expert negotiators, too.
Right.
Hera, it's amazing. It's like a whole other world behind the scenes of airport firefighting that we never even think about.
It really is.
It's not just about getting the best deals, though, right?
Right.
They've got to think bigger picture, too.
Oh, yeah.
Like, what happens if there's some kind of huge power outage or a natural disaster?
Exactly. They've got to be ready for everything.
Right.
And that's where the business contingency plan comes in.
Okay, so the business contingency plan, what's
Yeah.
the main idea there?
So it's all about making sure those really important services keep working no matter what else is going on.
Okay.
We're talking the fire station, their communication systems, even their water supply.
Wow.
They need backup plans for everything.
So they're thinking about, like, those worst-case scenarios, right?
Absolutely.
The what-ifs that most of us would never even dream of.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It goes beyond the physical stuff, too.
Okay.
They need backups for their equipment, fire trucks, rescue tools, the whole shebang.
Wow.
They even have to think about having enough spare parts.
It's like they're preparing for a Hollywood disaster movie.
Pretty much.
Except this is real life with real consequences.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And speaking of real life, all of this planning and preparation, it all comes back to one really important idea: risk management.
Risk management. Okay, that sounds serious. So how does that work with airport firefighting?
Well, it's all about figuring out what could potentially be dangerous.
Okay.
Everything from how the planes operate to those hazardous materials we talked about.
Right.
And then once they know what the risks are, they can figure out how to make them less dangerous.
So they're not just waiting for emergencies to happen.
Right.
They're trying to stop them from happening in the first place.
Exactly. They're always looking for potential problems and coming up with ways to fix them.
So it's like a never-ending game of what could possibly go wrong, but instead of just stressing them out, it actually makes everyone safer.
Exactly. And the best part is they're not doing it alone. They're always sharing information with everyone involved. The airlines, airport staff, everybody's working together to minimize those risks as much as possible.
That's incredible. It really sounds like they've created this whole environment of safety that goes way beyond just the fire station.
I'd say so. And that commitment to safety, you can really see it in everything they do.
Yeah.
From how seriously they take their training, to how well they keep up their equipment, to how they're always looking for ways to improve.
You know, it's funny.
Like so?
When I used to picture airport firefighters in my mind, I just thought about those giant trucks and, the whole putting out fires thing.
Right.
But it's so much more than that.
It really is. It's a whole world behind the scenes that most people don't even know exists.
Exactly. And it's one that we should all appreciate a lot more.
I agree.
So next time we're at the airport, let's all take a second to think about those unsung heroes working hard to keep us safe.
Couldn't agree more.
Well, this deep dive has been amazing. It's been so cool to get a glimpse into this world and learn about all the work that goes into keeping us safe when we fly.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your expertise.
Happy to do it.
And to everyone listening, thanks for coming along with us on this journey. Until next time, safe travels.